Leaders of the 6 civil rights organizations met with Attorney General Jeff Sessions yesterday in the Department of Justice. The meeting was set up to express their concerns about several civil rights issues and the latest actions by the Department of Justice under the Trump administration. Here's a portion of their news conference held after the meeting with Sessions.
We said to the Attorney General that we meet with him on the 160th anniversary of the Dred Scott decision, on the 52nd anniversary today of Bloody Sunday. And for us to be meeting with him, talking about these issues, has to be seen in the historic context that brings about the necessity to continue to fight, no matter who or what party's in office, to protect the equal rights, particularly of those of us that have been legally discriminated against. This was not a photo op meeting with black leaders. This is the beginning of to talk to people that will disagree and will say why, and give this administration pause to understand that all Americans must be heard without equivocation or compromise. We were not hostile, but we showed holy indignation, and we continue to be indignant about any threat to our civil rights.
He is now the Attorney General of the United States. He is the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States. He is the Chief Enforcer of the nation's civil rights laws. And that duty obligates him to affirmatively seek out investigations in areas where voter discrimination laws have been passed and to prosecute those laws. The communities that we represent expect that from the Department of Justice. We do believe that we laid out for him what are the critical issues as it relates to both voting and to policing reform and the expectation of African American and Latino communities around this country.
We came to present the agenda for civil rights that we want this Justice Department to embrace in 2017. Number two, we came to underscore that we will resist any rollback. We will protect our progress. We will resist any effort to roll back the hands of time when it comes to civil rights, human rights, or civil rights enforcement. I want to underscore the fact that the nation's civil rights agenda is not just the agenda for the 6 of us or for the organizations we lead, but we think it is an agenda embraced by millions of Americans across the nation who want to live in a nation that is fair, that is free, that is just, and that treats all Americans equally.
All right, folks, let's get right to it with Kristen Clark. She, of course, is the head Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under the law. All right, how you doing? So how'd the meeting go? How long did y'all meet?
The meeting lasted about 45 minutes. Mr. Sessions was joined by about 3 members of his senior staff, and we got right down to the issues that we came to press him on. We led with a focus on ongoing voter suppression and voting discrimination across the country. We let him know that we were deeply troubled by the department's 11th hour decision to pull out of the long-standing challenge to Texas's voter ID law. The Justice Department had stood alongside my organization, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, the Legal Defense Fund, Brennan Center, and other groups are in that case, arguing that this law is the most discriminatory voter suppression law that's been put on the books in the last few years.
His response?
No response. No response, but we let him know that we're watching closely, and we do not expect this Justice Department to abandon its job to enforce our voting rights laws and to fight voter suppression. And we ask that he push back against this narrative of vote fraud, that he counsel the president against creating this vote fraud task force that they've been talking about for weeks.
He also, last week, meeting with the state's attorney generals, said they will be pulling back on the lawsuits against police departments, trying to correct them. Was he questioned about that? And did he give any response?
We talked about policing reform, and we confronted him on the doubts that he's expressed about the continued use of consent decrees. We let him know that the Chicago Police Department matter is out there. Under Loretta Lynch and Vanita Gupta, the Justice Department laid out a report, hundreds of pages of findings of a broken police department that is in need of reform.
What was his response?
He said that he's very concerned that the department's work has had a demoralizing effect on police officers. But what he needs to recognize is that police brutality has had a demoralizing effect on our communities. So we pushed him there and had a spirited back and forth. We then moved to the travel ban and made clear that Monday's reissuance of the ban imposing the Muslim ban is unconstitutional, that it violates civil rights, that it invites racial profiling here in the United States, that it stereotypes communities. I specifically asked that he revoke that executive order, that he counsel the president to revoke the order. We then moved to hate crimes and said that the Justice Department's voice has been absent and missing in the wake of the spike of hate crimes that we've seen around the country.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for your work, Attorney Clark. And as our sister Sherilyn Eiffel said, we know that he's Attorney General, so you're obligated to meet with him. Two questions very quickly. Number one, the Civil Rights Division. What are his plans for that? And number two, do you really expect this man to have not known anything you laid out to him yesterday in advance?
You know, it's interesting. Reverend Sharpton did raise the Eric Garner matter, and the Attorney General did indicate to us that he needed to check on the status of that matter. I mean, he's 4 weeks on the job. It does not seem that he has fully embraced from A to Z all the work that's happening across the Civil Rights Division. But we did lift up the fact that Eric Garner's matter is still pending. We know that there is still an open federal investigation, and we don't know the results of it. And he did commit to us that he would check on the status of the Garner matter.
And a division head for civil rights?
We closed the meeting by presenting him with a letter that laid out the criteria that we think we need to see in somebody leading the division, somebody deeply committed to enforcement of civil rights laws.
Angela.
I will also echo the thanks. I don't think I could have sat in that meeting, so appreciate you for doing that. I'm curious,
You could have sat in the meeting.
No, I could not. I don't think I could have done it. I appreciate you, though. The meeting probably would have ended a little differently. But I want to ask you, it sounds like you laid out some very important issues of the case. He was mostly unresponsive, or at the very least, maybe we'll look into it. What is the strategy moving forward? Is there a look at some lower level courts or other areas where we may be able to move on the state route to get some changes?
We will fight and we will resist. There's a movement on playing in the streets, but this movement also needs to play out in the courts. And so we will fight anytime this administration does something that rolls back civil rights of African Americans. We will resist. We will file lawsuits. We will keep them tied up in courts for the next 4 years. And I told Mr. Sessions that if they do not revoke this travel ban, that dozens of suits around the country that will bog down the resources of this Justice Department for the next 4 years.
Sue?
I agree with everyone on the panel saying I commend you for setting up this meeting, for going into it in such a well-prepared way, for having the letter, for having all the issues lined up that you wanted to talk about, knowing that you only had 45 minutes. I think you guys got a lot accomplished. I take issue with the characterization that non-responsive, is a negative thing. I think that he listened, at least from the reports that I heard from people who are at the meeting, that I think this kind of informed intellectual dialogue, debate,
I think his inaction
back and forth
is an action on all of the things that she listed up until now, and his silence in this conversation is an indication of where his head is in his function.
He's been in the Senate for
exactly.
decades.
This is not this meeting and his lack of response. It sounds like was not the first indication of who's Attorney General Sessions is.
I mean, he wasn't there to cause a debate.
No, he was there to get the photo op, but they're going to fight.
It's week 4 on the job. We are going to keep pressure to bear every day that man is in office. Those are our taxpayer dollars at work, and we know that civil rights issues continue to play out and beleaguer our communities every day. So we'll fight every day. We're not going to make it easy on them.
All right, Kristen, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not gonna let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally. What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.